Dopamine fasting in its purest form is a practice of doing nothing while your habituated dopamine cycles chill the fuck out. You'll become so bored that boring stuff becomes interesting. If you don't feel like doing the work that you already decided was important and needed to be done, try sitting and doing nothing until you're dying for something to occupy yourself with. Then doing your work sounds more interesting than sitting and doing nothing. Everything is relative. Boring stuff like working towards your goals becomes a lot more interesting and feels better after a period of abstaining or fasting from activity. Your baseline adjusts and you don't need as much stimulation to feel happy and balanced. There's plenty of step-by-step instructions available on how to get rich, how to lose weight, how to find peace of mind, and many of them work just fine as long as you know how to get yourself to do the things that you know you should be doing. If you haven't figured out how to get yourself to do this yet, then no plans, no step-by-step instructions, no amount of hand-holding will help you unless it addresses this core issue first. Figuring out what to do is actually a minor detail compared to figuring out how to get yourself to do it consistently. Knowing what to do is actually more of a byproduct that comes after doing. Yet many people try to obtain this knowing before the doing. In many cases, confidence and knowing what to do comes after the experience and after the doing. Stop waiting around for these things to show up beforehand. It's just not how it works. When people take steps in the direction that seems right, experiment with an open mind, and pay attention to the feedback, they learn along the way. It's difficult, if not impossible, to know exactly what to do before you start. Most of the people who have accomplished anything of interest in their life will tell you that even the best prepared plans get laid to waste and the journey becomes a challenge of trying to figure out what to do while you're doing it. It's a game of balance, very much like riding a bicycle. There's only so much you can learn about bicycle riding theory before you just need to go try it, fall, adjust, fall, practice more, then eventually figure it out for yourself. Life and your very own mind have many strings pulling you in many directions. Your own dopamine reward system keeps your monkey mind bouncing around like a squirrel with a crack pipe. It's hard to stay balanced and focused. This practice of shedding thought patterns and habituations that don't serve you will help you maintain balance and tap into your internal motivation. So how do you get yourself to do the things you know you should be doing? Your vibes and your state of mind are primary determining factors in this. Your state of mind usually determines the course of your autopilot, which is the system that moves most people through at least 95% of their actions every day. So much of this is based on habit and routine. It's possible to cultivate a state of mind where you do difficult things you don't feel like doing because you've made a game out of it, or you've built it into your identity. To an outside observer, this looks like discipline. To some people, staying disciplined looks and seems hard. And it is hard to build the habit, but once you have it, it's actually easy to maintain habits. And it can actually become hard to do the opposite and break the habit, which is what an addiction, a cycle, a routine, that's what these patterns are all about. When you're vibing high and feeling empowered, positive things flow naturally. There's an Eastern concept known as Wu Wei, which means doing without doing, the effortless ideal. It involves paying attention and picking up on patterns like this and noticing that there are states of mind and games that you can play with yourself that make work seem like play. When you learn how to maintain a balanced and elevated state of mind, your ongoing constructive thoughts will produce ongoing constructive actions almost effortlessly. It's when you're in lower states of mind that bringing about an amazing life and moving towards heaven on earth seems like a lot of work. It's in the lower states of mind where you start doubting yourself and saying, oh gee, I have to invest 2 hours of my time and energy every day to make my life amazing. I don't even know if it'll work. So I'll just stay comfortable. Let me turn on the TV and grab something yummy to eat. I'll wait for a sure thing. There's got to be an easier way somewhere. I'll find the shortcut eventually. It's the lower states of mind that produce thoughts like this. It's not you. It's your state of mind that produces these thoughts. Giving yourself some gratification and feel good now will help you with this, but it has to be something positive and sustainable. When you're healthy, in an elevated and well-balanced state of mind, you can wake up, watch the sunrise, get in a good workout, and feel great, ready to take on your day and make a game out of progress. But if you're coming from a place of overstimulation, that may not be enough for you. Maybe you need shortcuts like a sugary caffeinated beverage and a pastry to give you enough of a dopamine boost to get on with yet another day of more of the same. But when you take a shortcut to feeling good, you're increasing the amount of future stimulation you need to feel balanced. This is how people become overstimulated in the first place. If you keep doing this, pretty soon you'll be uncomfortable sitting alone with your own thoughts and emotions without some external entertainment or stimulation. How do you solve a major life problem if you can't even sit, focus, and think about it? What we want to do is adjust the baseline of how much gratification you need right now in order to be happy. That's what I mean by this dopamine baseline I keep referring to. If you live a simple, balanced life, you can feel happy without making a whole lot of trades that sacrifice your future. You want to figure out how to feel happy without needing much to do so. You want to be vibing high on your own. That's the ideal. And the way to do that is to practice going periods of time without the external stimulation and get comfortable with yourself. This will de-stimulate you and make it so that the simpler things in life are stimulating and enjoyable once again. If you've been working on spiritual growth for a while and maybe have your eye on a major awakening experience or enlightenment, what we're doing here is similar to what Buddha did to finally reach his enlightenment. Before he was enlightened, Buddha travels around the countryside seeking liberation. He learns the importance of balance, which he describes as the middle path, and begins living accordingly, but he still hasn't popped yet. It takes him a while to stop external seeking and realize the truth from within. So what did Buddha finally do under the Bodhi tree to reach his breakthrough enlightenment experience? Not a fucking thing. He sat and emptied his mind of default thought loops, attachments, and habituations. So if you've been running around doing stuff trying to reach enlightenment or bring about awakenings, maybe it's worth trying the stopping of doing stuff. I see a lot of people habituated to busyness and gotta do this, gotta do that. Feeling the need to always be busy and occupied with something is a habituation. But you need time not doing as well. Don't be the lumberjack who's obsessed with keeping his axe moving. It's important to step back, take a look at the work that's been done, plan out what needs to be done next, and also sharpening the axe can be really helpful. It's funny to think about the dozens of books I've read and years worth of practice I put into something that sounds as simple as letting go. But it is hard work, and the process will probably involve being uncomfortable. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable your whole journey, but when you're doing new stuff that you're not accustomed to and stepping out of your comfort zone, well, by definition, that's going to be at least a little bit uncomfortable. Right now, you're probably attached to comfort, and this is one of the things you need to let go of. In fact, comfort is an ideal that many people strive for in life. But everything that you want the most in life is outside of your comfort zone. If it was in your comfort zone, you'd probably have it already. It's not all sunshine, roses, and psychedelic trips. So much of spiritual work is purifying yourself of bad habits and bad ideas. It's about letting go of stuff you're attached to, stuff you think you need to be happy or to even exist. Your natural tendency as a conscious being is like that of a helium balloon. You'll naturally want to gravitate upwards towards what you believe to be good and right. You'll naturally form ideals of things you'd like to grow and work towards. And you'll work towards these things unless you're attached to something that's weighing you down and holding you back. Unless you're distracted and caught up in a negative feedback loop like a bad habit. This is the difficult side of spiritual work that doesn't sell well because people don't want to hear it, even if it's the truth. Most people just like the feel-good stuff and keeping their vibes high. It's a good enough place to start, but it'll only get you halfway there at best. This hard work I'm talking about here needs to be balanced with the feel-good stuff. Do the hard work like I'm describing, then go hold hands and sing Kumbaya around the campfire. Do both. When your progress stalls, it's probably because you're not doing enough of the hard stuff. So raise the bar and spend more time and energy there. And here we are with yet another balancing act. This raising of the bar needs to be balanced with patience and allowing time for changes to take effect. It also needs to be done in a sustainable way that you're comfortable doing regularly for the rest of your life. Like a new exercise routine, it will be uncomfortable and challenging at first, but as you get used to it, it becomes second nature. As you sit through a dopamine fast, you'll burn away all the thought loops and habituations that aren't serving you. Not all at once, of course. It takes repetition and is an ongoing practice. When undesired cravings, thoughts, and emotions come to the surface, you don't engage them, you just let them go and stop attaching significance to them. I think of this as wrestling with the dragon or wrestling with the devil. You've got thoughts and emotions that don't serve you, trying to consume you and manipulate your actions into something harmful. If that's not wrestling with the devil or your inner demons, then I don't know what is. But you can't win by force, only by letting go. This takes practice and is a powerful skill useful in many different ways. When enough of the power has been taken away from these habituations that don't serve you, you can explore them from a neutral and curious state of mind and perhaps even journal some insights and positive reframes if you're able to maintain a mindful, detached perspective. You would think that freedom means doing whatever you want. But this is an illusion, another example of the counterintuitive. There's no freedom without self-control. You need to have some control of your actions in order to not sabotage and destroy yourself. And your actions are dictated by your thoughts and emotions. Let go of the ones that don't serve you and reinforce the ones that do. Easy mode means you can distract yourself with something else as you fast and go without something that you're seeking distance from. For example, you can watch TV and movies to distract yourself while you're going through junk food withdrawals or fasting from food altogether or trying to break a social media addiction. Think in terms of breaking up deeply cemented patterns and finding less harmful, less time and energy consuming alternatives. Don't let the alternatives cement themselves in as you're doing this over weeks and months. They're just stepping stones. For example, many former alcoholics end up smoking or drinking caffeine to get their instant gratification fix. Depending on the individual and the circumstances, it could actually be a less toxic, less destructive step in the right direction, as long as the new habit doesn't get deeply cemented in, and you're able to acknowledge one of the first priorities is to then replace smoking, for example, with something even less toxic. Many former smokers turn to junk food to get their instant gratification fix, which is a big part of why they say quitting smoking makes you fat. Please note that I'm not actually recommending anyone smoke or eat junk food to help get rid of other more harmful addictions. I'm just acknowledging that this is a common pattern. It's what people do. It's a starting place for people trying to move in the right direction. These are stepping stones, and it's important to keep moving and not get stuck with another harmful addiction you'd rather not be doing. The ideal is to transition immediately into something healthy and sustainable, like finding joy in cooking and eating healthy instead of drinking and smoking. For example, becoming a grill master became an important part of my identity when I was quitting drugs and alcohol and switching to a healthier identity as a person who is really good at cooking up his favorite healthy foods. I cooked from scratch most days, and every day became a game of refining my craft and making this piece of salmon even better than the last one. Aim to get yourself into a constructive state of mind like this. I also went through phases of making a game out of making the best soups and stews, chili, salads, stir-fried veggies that I possibly could. Each time I would just do a new experiment and try to make it better than the last time. I just made a game out of it, turned it into a craft for myself. Pick a healthy, sustainable food and get really into preparing it just the way that you like it. It'll change your life. As you transition away from destructive habits and bad ideas, the ideal is to find something more constructive, like spending time outside with an activity that you enjoy, or getting back into a creative hobby or interest, or finding something totally new. It's the unexpected surprise reward that'll grab your mind by the dopamine circuit. Look into some constructive new activities that have your curiosity and be pleasantly surprised by how interesting or how much fun this thing that you never tried before is. Novelty is a powerful way to get your mind hooked on something new and forget about whatever it's been stuck on. If you think you've been eating too much junk food and are determined to lose weight and regain control of your diet, resolve to go all day, all weekend, or all week without. Pick a time frame that seems doable but challenging. If you sometimes go all day without, well, repeating this might be too easy. Could you go 3 days? A week? And I'm not just talking about junk food here. I only keep coming back to it and talking about junk food because it's relatable. But I'm talking about all those things that we're trying to get distance from. Set the bar low, but not so low that you don't feel like you've broken any new ground when you jump over it. Use this to build belief in yourself and take on bigger challenges. You're the one deciding on what an appropriate challenge is for yourself. I can't tell you what to do without knowing anything about you. There's no general guideline for everyone, everywhere, at any stage of their life. If you have a tough addiction that you've been trying to crack and get distance from, this is an accessible place to start. Baby steps. We're not trying to build up your anxiety and get you thinking, oh shit, I don't know if I could go a whole week without junk TV and junk internet. We want you to set a period of time that seems challenging but doable, then reflect back on your experience and not fall for the temptation to binge afterwards. That's the practice. If we're talking about junk food, let's say you already know you can go a few days without processed sugar and potato chips, but then the cravings get too big and you binge. Try going the same few days, then only having your treat in a predetermined and controlled amount. Pay really close attention to how you feel while you're doing it and how you feel afterwards. It's probably worth journaling some notes about your experience. Did you still end up binging on multiple occasions despite telling yourself that you wouldn't? Pay attention to the results you're getting and adjust your approach if it's repeatedly failing. This is the time for mindfulness. How long do the good feelings last for? How long do the bad feelings last for? Is the thing you're craving actually elevating you and making you feel good? Or is it just alleviating the bad feeling of craving and only bringing you back to feeling normal? You may actually reach the profound realization that you don't actually like what you're doing, nor does it make you feel an elevated sense of good. You might just feel good because you don't feel bad anymore because the craving is gone. I think that's enough for today. We'll call that a wrap on easy mode, and we'll get into hard mode and expert mode tomorrow. What I call dopamine fasting hard mode is the practice of sitting undistracted for a number of hours. If major awakening experiences, enlightenment, or self-actualization are priorities in your life, this is a very direct path moving towards those things. If you just want to find balance, peace, and happiness in life, you may be able to get there without this stuff. But if you've had a rough life and have lots of conditioning to unwind, you may need to face these issues head on, and these exercises are the most effective I've found. Easy mode allows you to distract yourself from uncomfortable feelings. Hard mode puts you face to face with uncomfortable feelings and gives you direct practice in letting go of them. Hard mode is doing this for a number of hours in one session. What I'm calling expert mode is doing this multiple days in a row to cement in the new habituation of a clear and undistracted mind. Sometimes the undesired thoughts and feelings simply go away, as if they evaporate once we shine some light on them. Sometimes there's an epiphany. Sometimes we simply realize that what was once an uncomfortable exercise becomes an essential exercise in a mental wellness routine. It's not much different than the burn one feels at the gym being uncomfortable and undesirable at first, then becoming a positive sign that the muscles are being worked well and will likely recover stronger than they were before. This is not an exercise in wallowing in your own negative thoughts and emotions. You're observing them without engaging them, almost as if you're a neutral third-party observer looking in someone else's head. In fact, sometimes I like to pretend I'm that Australian outback crocodile hunter guy, observing the nature of what's going on inside my head. Oh, he's thinking useless thoughts again. Let's see how long it takes him to realize he's thinking and stop doing it. Oh, he's aware. What a sharp creature. When you're alone in the woods for days at a time, you gotta play some kind of games with yourself, and you might as well work on some fake accents while you're at it. As ridiculous as it sounds, this is an advanced technique, it's hard to say that not everyone will be able to do without practice in building up ability first. As you're experiencing something negative, ask yourself, what is this really? Does it have inherent meaning on its own, or am I supplying the meaning? Is there a sensation or a tension in your gut or your chest? What do you feel happening inside your mind and your body as you're experiencing these thoughts and feelings that keep coming up? What effect does breathing have on it? What effect does time have on it? What effect does a cold plunge or cold shower have on it? It's one of my favorites, if you recall from earlier. These are important observations worth journaling at the end or even in the middle of your session if you feel it's important enough to note. Sitting without doing anything for a prolonged period of time, without anything to distract or occupy yourself, can be one of the hardest things you learn how to do. It's also a good representation of your current spiritual growth progress, how deep the conditioning of your monkey mind is, and how well you're able to let go of not only thoughts, but habituations towards busyness to occupy yourself. A lot of the time, this busyness we try to occupy ourselves with is just to distract us from the uncomfortableness of being alone with our thoughts and feelings. Oftentimes, there's something that we don't like about ourselves that we don't want to think about. If we spend more time seeking to understand ourselves and practice acceptance of ourselves and our current state of mind, we find ourselves in a much better position to do something about it. Most people reflexively don't like having their weak spots pointed out or identified, even when they're alone by themselves. These weak spots are the holes in your bucket. It doesn't matter how much positivity you're filling it up with if there's a big hole in the bottom. What thoughts does your mind gravitate towards when you sit by yourself? This is your default brain circuit. You can program this. Whatever you keep thinking about and putting your time and energy into takes up residence as part of your default brain circuit, which is the circuit that your brain defaults to when it's at idle. What are you putting your time and energy into? Where are you getting your biggest dopamine hits from? What are you perceiving as your biggest challenges? These will be the thoughts that linger about with their associated feelings. Are you worried about paying your bills? And your mind keeps coming back to this as a default? Maybe you have a bigger problem than paying your bills. Maybe you have a behavior control problem. And if you solve your one behavior control problem, you can solve many other smaller problems like your bills, your relationship problems, and your health problems. You'll want to be shored up in other practices like meditation and mindfulness before you try this kind of stuff. I started doing this for a few hours whenever I'd find a quiet, beautiful, out-of-the-way place in the woods, the desert, or at the beach. You can do this sitting around at home if you like, or out in the park, as long as you're relatively free from distractions and temptations. What we're doing is not meditation in the strictest sense. Much of your time will be spent in periods of meditation and mindfulness where we release thoughts as they arise, but we'll also take breaks and allow ourselves to take walks, do physical exercises, journal, and go through periods of deliberate contemplation and self-inquiry. Eyes open meditation and mindfulness is a big part of this as well. There's no need to sit with eyes closed the whole time. I keep mine open most of the time in this practice. We're taking the calm, centered alertness that we've cultivated in eyes closed meditation, and we're learning how to bring this state of awareness into our waking life with our eyes open and things in the environment to test our presence and focus. Watch trees or grass blowing in the wind. Watch children playing in the playground in the distance if you're at a park. Watch the squirrels run around. Watch a candle burn. Watch a campfire or fireplace burn. Notice the things that are happening around you. This is all part of the practice. But we're We're keeping our attention in the present moment. We're not looking at someone walk by then thinking, oh, he looks kind of like that guy I know. I remember that time that and then we stop right there because we're letting go of these thoughts that lead us out of the present. We cut them off as soon as we realize it's happening and bring our attention back to the present moment. No need for frustration. It's an ongoing practice of letting go, sort of like balancing. Try standing on one foot and then lift the ball of your foot off the ground and try balancing on one heel. You're going to have to keep doing something to maintain balance. There's no need to get frustrated as you flail your arms about. It's part of the practice. You're going to have to keep letting go of thoughts to maintain balance and stay in the present moment. The rules are pretty simple. You can sit, move around, walk, journal your thoughts, and practice your own yoga or Tai Chi following your own intuition, not external instruction. This is not something practiced socially. No reading, no watching anything with a screen, no listening to music or audiobooks, and for double expert mode, no eating. You can still do this practice, cook mindfully, have a mindful meal break, and still get more than plenty out of it. This is a good stepping stone towards the more difficult challenge of fasting through the experience. It's also a great way to spend a day out in nature. Pack a healthy lunch, go take a hike. The entire hike, sit breaks, and eating experience can be practiced mindfully while maintaining presence and not being distracted by thoughts outside the present moment. Your mind will definitely be sharper, and the deeper spiritual experiences and insights will likely come when you include fasting. But there's no need to start there. The escalation is steep. Build the habit and consistency first. Spending your time like this is a real lifestyle change, and it's just a new life practice. Don't kid yourself into thinking you can just go try this a few times and get gold nuggets out of it. You really got to work for those. You can't go to the gym a few times and end up in great shape. This works the same way. You can still have insights and awakenings from day one, really, but they will be relatively small. They'll seem big, but don't stop short and think you've got it. They get much bigger. Don't forget that we're working on an infinite scale here. I've worked up to a week with food before. I've had major epiphanies, and the insights keep coming, even with shorter sessions. My next personal challenge is a week with no food, which I've done as a fast, but with plenty of distraction to keep my mind off the discomfort. The next challenge is to sit through a fast with no distractions and successfully detach from the discomfort. But that's just me, and that comes much further down the road, even for myself still. The default and emphasis of this exercise will be to observe thoughts without indulging and getting carried away. Play a game. Step into the mindset of your higher self and observe everything your ego mind is going through. Add distance between you and your thoughts by saying to yourself, oh, okay, now he's thinking about what he wants to have for dinner. There will be time for these thoughts later. Right now, we're just letting them go. This is your baseline meditation mindfulness activity that everything will orient around. Then later, as a bargaining chip, you can give yourself 30 minutes to daydream and think about whatever you want. Or you can give yourself scheduled time to reflect and think constructively about a particular issue you've identified as being a high-value problem that you'd like a solution to. And all I mean by a high-value problem is that by resolving it, you get really good bang for your buck and solve many other problems. For example, by fixing a weight problem, someone can also fix their energy level problems, their brain fog problems, fix their insulin resistance, fix their sugar addiction, strengthen their behavior control, which will spread to other areas of their life, help clear up snoring or any sleep apnea problems, get their sexual partner excited in them once again, and get their doctor to stop telling them that they're a walking heart attack waiting to happen. Now that is a high-value problem worth sitting and meditating on. Ask yourself, your higher self, your spirit guides or God, what are the best questions that you can muster? This is what you want to be asking when you're in this time and space. What one question, if you had the answer to it, could solve multiple major problems and dramatically change your life for the better? These are the kinds of questions you want your unconscious mind to work on while you meditate, while you're going about your day, and while you're sleeping. Take away most of the external stimulus and just sit for at least a day. The ultimate dopamine fast. You'll have to figure out how to produce your own feel-good chemicals by finding joy in the present moment. I liken this to dietary fasting and learning how to produce your own energy from your own reserves. With dietary fasting, you're even training your body to make its own steady supply of blood sugar. Dopamine fasting is a similar idea. You're teaching your body to find balance and survive using its own adaptive process. Your baseline everyday, I feel good feeling will evolve to need a lot less dopamine, and you'll become much more sensitive to even small amounts that your body produces to drive you towards things that serve you. So what did Buddha do under the Bodhi tree to finally reach enlightenment in the end? Not a fucking thing. And that's what you'll be doing too, with some minor modifications. Start with a time period that seems doable to you. I started with regular 1, then 2, and 3 hour sessions in hard mode first. 8 hours is a good number to work towards for a daily session, especially a Sunday day of rest. Then try going from waking in the morning and back to sleep for the night. How else will you undo an obsession with staying occupied and distracted? This is really a great way to regularly spend a day of week, perhaps a Sunday, as a day of rest. If you don't understand how your mind works, it's probably because the water is muddy and you can't see how everything interconnects. When you stop splashing around so much, the water gets really clear. Once we start getting into more than one day of sitting, I call this expert mode. Then maybe a week if awakening experiences, enlightenment, or self-actualization is your first priority in life and you're scheduling the rest of your life around your priority. Work towards this further, years down the road. Most of you will be compelled to exhaust all the low-hanging fruit and do the easy feel-good things you can do to move yourself forward first, which is fine. Your internal compass is set to find the easiest, most direct route with the least amount of obstacles and difficulties along the way, which is fine. But if you reach your destination without building your strength and your character through overcoming obstacles and challenges, have you really reached your destination? It's very much like rushing up a mountain, but when you get to the top, you can't stay there and enjoy the view because you haven't sat for long enough on the mountain to adapt to the altitude. So you're just visiting a peak state of consciousness, but you're unable to maintain it for very long. This pattern is very similar to a lot of people's experience with psychedelics. You're trying to break the habit of being your old self and evolve into something greater. This is extremely hard to do. Even people who break the bonds temporarily with psychedelics come right back to their old patterns and habituations and have to figure out something they like to call integration. How do you integrate the insights you learn from a psychedelic trip into your life? It's going to involve breaking the pattern of being your old self and getting your new insights and programming to stick as a new habituation, a new way of thinking, a new way of life. You might trip and get a clear and definite communication from your higher power that you need to be kinder, more loving, and more patient with people. This might just become extraordinarily obvious to you that this is what you need to be spending a good amount of time and energy on. But then when you get back into this habituated ego mind, which repeatedly gets impatient and is habituated to thinking about everything from its point of view and what it's going to get for itself, you still need to break the pattern of being your old self and form a new identity around this ideal version of yourself. There's still work to be done despite taking a psychedelic shortcut. And like I've been saying, this whole process works better if you start your work long before you throw psychedelics into the mix. This is what we're doing with exercises like this. We're letting go of the attachments that are causing us suffering and keeping us stuck at our current level of development and results in life. As you empty your bucket of preconceived notions, you'll have room to fill it and bring something new back. The idea behind this practice of sitting is self-transformation through self-observation. You're the star of this show. Keep your awareness on your experience and everything that is dancing in and out of your awareness. Observe, but don't engage. Engaging in thought is to step out of your present moment focus and into your world of thought. When you're still for long enough, the muddy water settles down and you can see who you really are. If you're seeking knowledge of self, you have to slow down enough and be in the right state of mind to obtain and retain this knowledge. It's easy to get it temporarily through a trip. It's a common experience for many, but it slips away as quickly as it shows up. The integration work should begin long before your first trip if you want to actually bring something back that sticks. A psychedelic trip is like going up the mountain to the spring of eternal knowledge. But if you bring a bucket with holes in it, or you bring one that's full of contents that you're attached to and you don't want to let go of, well, there's just barely any room for even a glimpse of the infinite. And then I see people coming back with a bunch of conflicting ideas to sort out. They don't seem conflicting when you experience them, but after the trip they do. Maybe you don't have the right framework, the right worldview to hold conflicting ideas in your head. Your belief system likely has you walled off in an imaginary world where contradiction means something is wrong. Your belief system doesn't allow for two contradictory ideas to be true. These are the kinds of beliefs you have to let go of. Reality is infinite, and it contains paradoxes and contradictions. All of the spiritual growth work I'm outlining in this course for you to do sets you up with the framework of ideas to act as a better bucket. Not just any bucket, an empty bucket for you to fill with whatever truth you find on the inside. If I get enough interest, I'll make a course on psychedelic integration because this seems to be missing from the lives of so many people that I talk to about their trips. You can still do your own guided meditations and visualization exercises in your session. And like I said, you can still get up, walk around, or look out the window, just stay present. In fact, I've done multiple days without leaving a high-rise hotel room before, just sitting and looking out the window. I usually prefer a combination of being outside and inside for variety. My favorite way to make a lot of focused progress in a little bit of time is by planning a camping trip around this sort of practice. Maybe if you're new, you just plan 4 hours of focus and then go out and enjoy some hobby or interest for the rest of the day. There's something about the change of scenery and change of pace that makes this arrangement work particularly well for those who are into it. So much of your usual autopilot will be disrupted when you spend your next weekend or week-long vacation out camping somewhere or at a quiet hotel or a quiet Airbnb by yourself. It's also a convenient way to tell people that you'll be unreachable and to leave you alone for a few days. You may need this sort of disconnect from your usual people and environments to disrupt your autopilot and take control of your life. You just might be amazed by the ideas your mind comes up with when it's not busy thinking about other people's ideas. A stricter and more specific variation of this sitting is known as vipassana, and there are specialized retreats that you can go to. The emphasis is much more on seated meditation. You'll be around other people, but they'll probably have a no socializing rule. They'll provide meals and a nice environment to sit around and practice doing nothing. For many people, doing hard things that require discipline is easier when other people are participating with you or even just observing you. The ultimate goal is to unwind you from your habituated thought patterns. Ideally, we want to get to the point where we can do this work self-directed when no one is supporting us because we see the value and understand how important it is. Minor awakenings along the way will help to keep you interested in working towards bigger awakenings. I think that's all for today. Why don't you go ahead and take a moment to do the exercises I've got for you in the next section.